Hi, everyone. To use our time efficiently, I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Netsanet Gebregziabher. I am a principal data manager within the Department of Biostatistics and Health Data Science. Myself and my colleague, Steve Brown, will be doing this presentation on REDCap development and use within our department. Our Department of Biostatistics was one of the first users of REDCap here at Indiana University. Sorry for it doesn't look right here, but it looked right when I put it together. But it was one of the first users when it was brought on to our campus. And it was important for us to have access to this because our department actually ends up being a support for biomedical research, not only in Indianapolis, but nationally and even internationally for grant development and scientific publications. So we collaborate with internal and external collaborators, for example, the School of Medicine, the School of Public Health, Dentistry, School of Nursing, and so many more different groups within our university and our sister sites within our university. And then we also have external collaborators like the India CTSI, and our collaborators at Purdue, Notre Dame, IU, of course, industry. We work with Eli Lilly, Roche, GSK, and so many others. And we actually use multiple different types of systems for research data collection. And we can have, like, for example, a particular data manager can have under their belt 5 to 8 projects. And each one, typically you can use multiple research data collection systems. We can use REDCap, Qualtrics, Encore, or our collaborators' EDC systems, or anything else that comes on board that we need to. But for a lot of our projects, we really enjoy using REDCap because we found that REDCap has an advantage over a lot of other ones because it allows integration of all types of studies into one system. It's secure, it's web-based, there's authentications, there's data logging, a lot of the things that Alexander was mentioning before this presentation started. It's also flexible for writing, testing, and implementing rules that are good for abiding by good clinical data management practices. And I'm going to show you some slides moving forward that kind of correlate of good data management practices and how REDCap goes towards that goal. The only thing that is not a plus is that it's not 21 CFR Part 11 compliant, but like Alexander said, it's a goal that's being worked on. Oh, I forgot to mention. It's advantage at user level because it's easy to train users. It has access control, form and project level. The randomization module is accessible for blinded studies that we have in some of our projects. There's also the data resolution workflow, which is important when you're working with external collaborators and they want to know, how do we know that there is some kind of resolution workflow for the data? And then there's also data collection at the level. There's direct data entry, there's scoring formulas. Typically, we like to do the scoring outside of REDCap because there could be things to consider that are not being, that maybe REDCap itself tells you the scoring, the calculation may not be exact. So we usually like to do it outside of it. But if the project needs to move to the next time point, but it has to have a score, then we use REDCap to do that. And we're grateful that that feature is available. It allows us also to upload documents and images. Sometimes there's CT scans and so forth that need to be uploaded. And it also allows us for surveys, automatic survey invitations, Twilio, integration with REDCap, and then the REDCap API for retrieving or modifying project data. And Steve, my colleague, will be talking more about that in his part. So here, I'm going to just touch real quickly on the REDCap and how it meets it works towards meeting our good clinical data management practices when we're working with internal, external collaborators on our projects. We're looking for things concerning the clinical database, ERCF, the electronic case report form, the data cleaning, the data transfers for analysis, the data lock and archive. These are important because when we're working, for example, with GSK, they have a set of questions that they want us to sign off on before they work with us. They say, what kind of system are you using? Is it going to do this, 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 this? And these are the major 5 categories that they're looking for answers. And we've seen that REDCap answers some of these questions in a way that is applicable to what they need. So for example, clinical database, it allows for training. They want to know, how can you train our people? There's training for REDCap FQA. There's videos and knowledge bases at our IU website. There's online resources within the CTSI sister community sites. There's also user manuals created by our project teams to navigate. And we can also even use REDCap itself to create a database where we do the training, and they have to read through the documents and sign off that they've read through these documents. And there's a signature at the end that you can do e-sig with a date associated with it to let the collaborators know, like, this person's been trained. We also have the development database. The development database lets you practice all of the, it goes back to the training, all of the ways that you can navigate the database and see if you have questions. It's usable before you go live, and it allows you to test functionalities for the users and create test subjects and entering data. It also allows for a log file so that you can see who's been in the system and who has done the training and who hasn't. I've had collaborators in the past who've said, oh, I've done the training, and then I look at the log and I'm like, no, you didn't. You're not in there. So it's really wonderful, so that if the PI comes back to us and says, did you train all my people? And I need you to sign off this, then we have that log to help us. Now, remember, this is development, so it will be deleted once you put it in production, but for that moment, it's usable for us to understand who we've trained in the development database. There's also the production database, which is when you go live. That's for the real data entry, and it's protected, and there's an audit trail. There's also the ability to print out in PDF all of the case report forms, the instruments, with empty or saved data. Sometimes we have, at the end of the study, the collaborator will come to us and say, I want to print out at participant level or at the whole project level all of the entries that have been done by the participants. And I want you to also send me the calendar, and I want you to send me your data dictionary with it. And so REDCap allows us to be able to give them all of this. REDCap also allows the formatting of the case report forms, the data dictionary I was just telling you about. So it can let us and let our collaborators know, okay, these are the variables. This is the label of the variables. These are what the, sorry about that. That was how I was going to time myself. And these are the field and variable types and so forth. Also, these are the clinical databases. These are also other things where you can control the access control of the data entry. So here, for example, let's say you have a study that has randomization and you have blinding in it. This is where you can control who can see the randomization form. You can make it so that everybody can have access to all of the form, but they can't have access to the randomization form. And there's an audit trail that I was telling you about earlier. This is the data cleaning. So we have different ways of looking at data cleaning. For example, we do branching logic, we have validation prompts, and we have the report builder. We also have the data resolution workflow, which is awesome when you're dealing with monitors outside of IU and you're dealing with multiple sites, and they want to know, how can I go ahead and do an entry and let the research data entry people or research nurse know that this doesn't make sense, this is empty, and so forth. So there is a way that they can open and show unresolved issues and then close it out. And it shows who opened it and who closed it and so forth. This contributes to good clinical data management practices for our project. There's also the ability to do data transfers for analysis. So there's a bunch of different export formats that have statistical packages, along again with the data dictionary and code book, and the ability to download the data in PDF form. And so for data that's locked, you can lock the data at the record level or overall level, which also contributes to good clinical data management practices that we appreciate. And then there's the ability to archive the data so that no one else can come back and enter the data. It's now closed and we can come back. So all these features for us are a lot of advantageous tools that REDCap offers that we appreciate. And then I'm going to show you quickly an example that our department, we have monthly meetings. And then in those monthly meetings, we share ways that we can help each other or projects that we're working on. Maybe we have panel discussions and so forth. So this is an example from one of those meetings from a colleague. So this project has a cancer and COVID project. The goal was to track the COVID-19 vaccination dose of cancer patient versus healthy controls. And the answers that they were looking for were, do cancer patients experience more adverse events than healthy controls? Are cancer patients more likely to test positive for COVID-19 despite vaccination? And so this is the calendar that we were looking at in our protocol. And now we had to take this calendar and implement it into REDCap. Let me look at time. And so the project design was they have different vaccination types. Moderna, Pfizer, J&J have different schedules. Boosters could take place at varying times at after initial dose, and possibility for multiple boosters, especially for cancer population. So the data manager solution was to add all possible doses, 1, 2, and the booster time points once to the calendar study. So we can look basically like this into implementation like this. And then when adding a new record to the database, the study team then will select whether the subject is being enrolled prior to their initial dose or after. And then the subject can therefore have multiple rows representing different doses received. So for example, at below, you can see record 11, 12, 13 for the same person. And so it's for the initial dose, and 1 for the booster and 1 for their second. And so here, the automatic surveys, this is how we use the automatic surveys to do this. And then this is the branching logic that was used to send it out to them. So not a booster record, subject has an email list, subject has not been marked as off study, subject has confirmed vaccine, first dose, and subject received the Moderna or Pfizer vaccine. So you can see here that we can manipulate it and do simple branching logic within the system, and also make it so that it can send it within a particular time frame. And so this is why we appreciate REDCap, and we use it in our department. So Steve, my colleague, is going to go next.
Okay, can you hear me okay? Is that working? Okay, great. Thanks so much, Netsanet. That was really awesome. I'm going to be kind of building on what what Netsanet was talking about how our department uses REDCap. And she mentioned this, and Alexander also mentioned this. REDCap has an API. It's very powerful. So I'll be talking about how we use REDCap API tokens, and then a couple other features if I have time. So the REDCap API is a way to programmatically interact with REDCap projects. So inherently, these tokens are really powerful, but they also can create potential security concerns. So we need to obviously protect the sensitive information we're collecting in REDCap, which means we need to secure the REDCap APIs appropriately. IU policies require a lot of effort to prove that each individual token is properly secured. But as a department, we wanted to develop a comprehensive solution that would be for all users and all tokens that we were using. So we chose to build a single repository for all REDCap API tokens with the 4 following requirements. First, they should be stored in a database repository only. They must be encrypted both at rest and over the network. They should be only visible to those users who own that particular token. And then they're accessible only via integrated authentication. All of that came to our solution of what we call the REDCap API token vault. It's a secure method to store and retrieve REDCap project API tokens without having to reference those tokens explicitly in any scripts. The way this works, we have a storage component. It's a SQL Server database with row-level encryption. And then we've built in access to that database through 2 different software platforms, R and SAS. For R, we've developed an internal package that has 4 different functions, and those are to add a token to the vault. We can delete a token from the vault. We can view all of the projects that we have, a particular user has tokens for that are stored in the vault. And then the 4th function would be actually to select a token to use in an API call. In SAS, we have macros that macro procedures that do those 4 functions as well. And you can see we have the R package highlighted here is because we push people to use R if you're comfortable with both of these programming languages. And I'll talk a little bit more about why we do that. But for the interaction with the API token vault, it's very similar in both platforms. But there's an external package that's actually being supported by Vanderbilt now, an R package that makes making API calls much easier. Yeah, question? We have not done anything in Python yet. So the question was if this is available in Python as well. We have not done that yet, but certainly something we could look into. Probably wouldn't be that difficult to generate that. So all this code is stored on the IU Enterprise GitHub. So it's the code that for our internal package and then the SAS macros. And then there are also some example calls from R and SAS to REDCap. And you can see in the black box on the right there, I just wanted to point out. So we're loading in our internal package and then the external REDCap API package. The token manager package is called REDCap Project Token Manager. Probably not the most slick name, but it is what it is. Maybe I need to consult some help for naming packages in the future. But then we're using that select token function where we provide the project ID. And then you can see the last line 6 there where we're saying token is equal to token, the double brackets 1. That's where we're pulling in the token from the vault. So again, we don't have to explicitly ever write the token. It just is brought in programmatically. The big news here is that we are, for a limited time only, we are currently accepting users outside of our department to give them access to this resource. We've tested this out for a few people and it seems to be going really well. So if this does seem like something you'd be interested in utilizing in your work, please reach out to me. And we're not sure how long this will last. Obviously, it depends on demand. So this could change in the future. So depending on the work you're doing, this might not be applicable, right? So you wouldn't want to go to all the work of programming and getting the API up and functioning if your REDCap project is a small project and maybe only collecting data for 1 or 2 time points, right? So a really good use case that we use this for is regular reporting for large projects that are going on for multiple years. And we want to sort of expand on what the traditional reporting that's done natively in REDCap. And so we're using the API workflow in order to do this. And so I have a couple examples up here on the screen. On the left is an HTML report. And so we use HTML reports to add a little bit more functionality in those reports so users can kind of interact with it. And then on the right is just a page of a PDF report where we're doing some descriptive statistics on some patient testing. And again, so this is sort of, we're able to provide our collaborators some more extensive reporting, some descriptive stats, again, that isn't natively available in REDCap. The reaction to from our collaborators and investigators from when we've instituted this workflow has been really positive. They've really seemed to like this. So we're excited about that. And again, exciting about trying to get this out to other users outside of our department. Okay, great. We're doing good on time. So I'm going to talk about a couple more additional tools and enhancements that we found that really help us when we're using REDCap. First is a drill down field type. So Alexander had listed all of the field types that are available in REDCap. A drill down type is not one of them. So that's the problem, that REDCap does not have a native drill down field type like some other software like Qualtrics, for example. And so what we've done is write an R script that generates an instrument zip file that you can then upload to your REDCap project. And what it does is it uses branching logic to replicate a drill down field type. The way this works is the user would just provide 2 CSV files. So with your first tier and your second tier values, you run the code, it builds this form, you uploaded them to REDCap, and then you have your drill down. On the right, I'm not sure if you can see it well, but hopefully you can. In this example, we were looking at all of the school districts in Indiana and then all of the schools, right? So our first tier option was the school district. So the user would select that school district. And then for the second tier, instead of having a list of every single school in Indiana, because of the branching logic, you would just see the schools in that school district. So that's worked really well, obviously, like something like states and counties, those kinds of things. And it's pretty quick to generate. One other thing that I wanted to talk about today was missing items. And this is something we run into quite a lot in our projects and with our collaborators, is how do we properly identify missing data items in REDCap? And our solution was, again, to develop an R script that interprets REDCap branching logic to distinguish items missing in error from those that are appropriately missing, right? If something is branched and the user never sees it, it's going to be missing, but we don't want to count that as a missing item per se. So what this does, this script produces REDCap calculated field syntax. And so you get an output. If you run this script against a REDCap data dictionary, you'll get an output CSV file that will have one calculated field per form. And then you can easily add those to your REDCap data dictionary and then upload it into REDCap, and then you'll have these fields. So what this would look like on the right, you can see the end of a REDCap form, and we've uploaded this missing questions field. So it's calculated field, and it's just automatically going to be counting the number of appropriately missing questions in the form. Now on the left, you can see the calculated field syntax. This is for a form that's got like 25 or 30 questions. A few of those questions have branching logic. And you can see that that calculated field syntax can get pretty unwieldy pretty quickly. This might be your thing to want to do this manually. That's not my thing. I would not appreciate having to do this manually. And you can see how detailed this would get if you have a form with 50, 75 questions and a lot of branching logic. It could get pretty out of control pretty quickly. With this code, you just run it against the data dictionary, upload these fields into REDCap, and it's done. This code is available on our public GitHub, which is linked there. And I just wanted to also give a special thanks to Jackie Langer and Adam Rector, who are no longer with our department, but they did a lot of work in getting this going. And again, this might not be applicable to everyone's usage of REDCap, but again, there are a couple of use cases that we use this a lot for. The first, within REDCap itself, so you can create a summary form in REDCap that allows project staff to review missing values per form during a patient visit, say. So you're doing an interview, you do 10 questionnaires with a patient, go to the summary form real quick. You can quickly scan to see if you've missed some questions and kind of go back right there while the patient's still in front of you. So we've gotten some good feedback on that. And then going back to the API, again, if you wanted to get into more complex reporting, you can use the API in conjunction with these missing fields to automatically create something like we have on the right, which is like a heat map table to show % completion of forms. And the way we're doing that is not only does the code give you the missing number, but also gives you the expected number of fields that should be completed. So we have the expected and the missing, therefore we can get a percentage of completion for each form, and then that's how we get this highlight table. Again, the projects we've instituted this workflow on have been really excited about that. We work with some international collaborations that are copying this workflow and that highlight table in particular. So again, it's been really positive feedback. I think with that, we can take Netsanet and I can take a couple questions if you have it. I just say that Netsanet is a great resource for all things REDCap. So if you do have, I hope she doesn't mind me saying that, if you do have questions about how our department is using REDCap, please reach out to her. And if you have any questions about anything that I've talked about today, reach out to me as well.
Hi, Steve. This may cover yours, Andy. So Anthony on Zoom asks about the missing items script. Is this script applicable for missing text / character values? So I think maybe he's asking about versus multiple choice.
Yeah, so this would be for, yeah, so this would basically be for any field. Now, if a text field had something in there that wasn't really consistent with what the question is, this would not be applicable to that. It's just basically going to check, was the question answered or not? Yeah. But if there is any value if there's any response to the question, then this would count. Yeah, for all field types. Yeah. And
Thank you.
I should say that we are talking about building this out a little more to allow people to put some parameters in if there are specific field types that they want to look at, to maybe be able to provide a specific list of questions, only look at maybe required fields. So those are kind of functionalities we're planning on building out in the future.
Thank you.
Other questions in the room or on chat? Great, thank you both.
Thanks so much.